All right, so Ankur, I'm going to make a comment on your speech, and this isn't actually something that I see wrong with your speech. It's just something that you might want to play with on your structure for the future. Future speeches. One thing that I've noticed is that in many of your speeches you tell a couple stories, and I know I've told you in the past, concentrate on cutting down the number of stories, cutting down the number of examples, but instead of uh, hammering further on that dead horse, I'm going to make a comment on something else. Um, and that is that the basic structure of your speech pretty much goes like this. You have introductory comments, then you tell them that you're going to tell them two stories. Uh, and then you tell them story number one, the lobsters. And then you tell them story number two, Starbucks. And then you pause and you ask them what these two stories have in common. So the audience is, where's my screen? Okay, there we go. So the audience is spending some time uniting the two stories, and then your closing comments are uh, hammering home your point. Why did I tell you these two stories? What you might want to do in the future at the this structure might, not necessarily always, but might introduce some confusion because up here in the introduction, if you start out with a central point and then all of a sudden you break it into two stories. Well, you're telling the second story, in this case a Starbucks story, part of the audience attention might be, or the audience might be wondering, what the hell does this have to do with the lobsters? And so they'll go through the Starbucks story, or you'll be going through the Starbucks story, and they'll be listening to you with one ear, but with the other ear or half of their brain, sorry for the mixed metaphor, with the other half of their brain, they'll be wondering, what does this Starbucks story have to do with the lobsters? Uh, and so for the duration of this Starbucks story, they'll be confused. One thing you might want to do to avoid that confusion, because this part of your speech, unifying the two stories and then hammering home the point, that's good. So the main thing that we want to avoid is the confusion. So one thing that you might want to try is uh, eliminating these introductory comments. Uh, and instead just make your speech, uh, hey, my name is Ankur. Welcome everybody. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tonight I'm going to tell you two stories. Tonight I'm going to tell you two stories. Lobster, lobster, lobster. Starbucks, Starbucks, Starbucks. And then, just like you did in this speech, uh, begin unifying the two speeches. What do these two stories have in common? They both have in common, uh, what was it, perception or how you make the audience feel or something like that. Anyway, your point. The advantage of this structure is that right away you tell the audience that there are going to be two stories. So, right at the beginning, in the first 15 seconds of your speech, the audience knows that, okay, put everything on hold for a second. You're going to have to juggle two ideas. Ankur's not going to stand up there and hammer home on one idea. He's going to make me hold two in my brain for a little while. So I'm going to have to do that. So prepare, brain. Uh, then here, instead of uh, this part, the unifying being a part about uh, eliminating confusion, now it's like bringing the two stories together, and then you get to finish out your speech just like you did. Uh, and one thing to be careful with whether you use either of these structures, the original or the different one, uh, is be very careful in the closing to stick on one point and to not in your attempt to belabor the point, probably kind of like I'm doing here, in your attempt uh, to drive this point home. Don't introduce new ideas. Uh, be very careful about introducing new ideas in the conclusion. Anyway, that's my comment on the speech. Overall, I think that your speeches are excellent, uh, and they easily, um, even if I think that you're easily, in terms of speech quality, I think you're easily beyond speech number 10. So you're way ahead of the game. All right, that's it.